It's extremely bad news hitting your wallet. The price of eggs has jumped more than anything else at the grocery store.
We have been getting calls all day long. Do you have eggs? Do you have eggs?
In chilly Palmer, Alaska, the demand for chickens and their eggs is heating up.
I was already sold out even before the egg shortage. I was selling everything I had.
$11.49 for a dozen eggs in New York, $10.99 in Hawaii.
I think it's ridiculous for it to be that much.
The highly pathogenic avian influenza, or avian flu, is largely to blame.
Both Eddie Bortman from Bortman's Egg Ranch and Billy Mao from a competitor across town say it's the bird flu.
It's just chaotic right now, where there's just a high demand for eggs and very little supply.
It's killing a lot of birds.
Are customers angry about this?
I think they're concerned. So the big reason prices are really soaring right now is because of the avian influenza outbreak, or bird flu. And it's the deadliest outbreak of all time.
Welcome back to the show. This is Anna, and you're watching Anna Speaks Out. Hi everyone, welcome back, and a big welcome to the new subscribers. I've seen a few of you recently, so good to have you here. By the way, since we are on the topic of another food shortage, I'm really excited to let you know that the online store that I've mentioned in the last few videos, where everything is made in the USA, clean, safe, natural ingredients, you can replace Target with this place. They recently announced that they are going to start a beef subscription box from their own cattle ranch, where all the cattle are pasture raised, never ever any antibiotics or hormones. The calves are raised by their own mothers. So for those of you who see how any or all of that could benefit you and your family, we can start a conversation in the comments. All right, and now let's get into the egg shortage of 2023. So about 2 weeks ago now, I saw this sign at my local grocery store that says they're placing a 2 dozen egg limit per household due to egg shortages. And almost all of the free-range or pasture-raised eggs, which are the ones that my husband and I always get, were missing from the shelves. This made what I had seen people on social media saying about egg prices dramatically rising and things like that really hit home for me. And if you've been around here watching for very long, you know that I never take the news at face value. I always question what the media is saying about why things are happening or even what is happening. So in this particular situation, I decided to do a poll on my Instagram story asking, are you or do you know a chicken or turkey farmer? And 4 people said yes, who happened to be from 4 different states. And then I asked if yes, has avian flu affected the operation at all? And interestingly enough, all of the people who voted on that said no. So first, let's look at this recent New York Times article that borrowed its title from Dr. Seuss. Can you find eggs here or there? Can you find them anywhere? And just see a few details of what they are saying. So they say more than 57 million birds in hundreds of commercial and backyard flocks have been affected by avian flu. Infected or exposed flocks are culled to prevent the virus from spreading, meaning that certain chickens that would be laying eggs are being killed in order to apparently prevent other chickens from getting the avian flu. Man, could you imagine if something was encouraged for humans that would take them out as part of an effort in stopping the spread of a deadly virus? That would be intense. Also, have you seen my latest short? But yeah, let's get back on track. The article goes on to say, in January 2022, the average price for a dozen large grade A eggs in the U.S. was $1.39, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. By November, the average price had increased to $3.59. It's always so kind of jarring to hear how low the national average prices are for things since I live here in California. It's always rather surprising. And they say increasing costs of fuel, feed, and packaging have also contributed to pricier and scarcer eggs. And they say that as for the beginning of January, when this was written, only 1 commercial flock and 10 backyard flocks had been affected, according to the Agriculture Department. Okay, so that's that. And now let me show you what the 5 actual chicken farmers who I talked to had to say. My very first initial interaction was with Naranjo Hills Farm in Northern California. I just asked them, hey, have you been affected by avian flu at all? And they said, nope, knock on wood, but we have very strict biosecurity with basically no visitors allowed on our property. So that's something to put into consideration. And then when I asked them through a DM, would you want to share any details about why you think it is that your operation hasn't been affected by avian flu? They said, I think it's primarily an issue with commercial facilities. Small family farms haven't really been impacted. And then they said that small farms don't usually get eggs in the winter because most of them don't use supplemental light and heat like commercial operations. So commercial operations have to cull their hens from avian influenza, and that combined with small farms that don't really sell eggs in the winter, there are currently less eggs available. So that's an interesting insight. And they said year-round eggs are a product of man-made hybrid chicken breeds and artificial environments. Heritage breed chickens take the winter off and farmers egg glass, which I actually don't know what that is, or freeze their eggs from the summer when there are extras. That was all on January 7th, and then on the 18th, which was yesterday, I said, can I also ask, has the price of whatever you feed your chickens increased for you a lot recently? And would you say that your chickens are either free range or pasture raised? They said yes to both. I was curious if they were free range or pasture raised because those are of course less mass produced, which would help explain why there are less eggs currently. The next person who I talked to said that they lived in Wisconsin and their cousin and her husband are the chicken farmers and hadn't had any more deaths than usual. Doesn't appear to be any outbreak. And then they said, I'm no expert, but it seems like it's entirely the economy. My aunt and uncle stopped dairy farming 12 years ago because prices were so bad. Factory farms with 1,000 plus head are needed to make a somewhat decent living nowadays. And then I asked if it seems like the egg farming is more profitable, and he said all farming is going factory, it seems. Can't make a living off a family farm alone anymore. Another person who I spoke to said, for clarity, we have a few dozen chickens, but primarily raise Kiko goats. My neighbor, though, does run a medium chicken operation here in south central Texas. Mostly Orpington chickens, which according to poultrykeeper.com apparently look like this. And then he said, neither of us have had any instances of avian flu. However, a bit farther south, down toward Corpus Christi in the valley, a few friends have had some losses. Mostly was bacterial, though, which wouldn't be the flu. Salmonellosis, I believe. But as far as I know, that is usually due to poor maintenance of the chicken's living conditions, which, by the way, is all part of why factory farms give their animals antibiotics in their feed. When I asked about the price of his and his neighbor's feed and whether or not his chickens were pasture or free range, he said, my chickens are free range, so they get a good bit of bugs and whatnot. Feed hasn't increased noticeably for me, but I only have around 50 chickens. My neighbor has the chicken farm, so he would definitely notice price fluctuations a lot more. And the last person who I spoke to on Instagram said, I'm in Midcoast, Maine. I haven't heard anything about avian flu around here. But today at our local co-op, I saw that an Amish brand from up north wasn't in stock, which isn't normal, so maybe something is happening. And then they said, I am somewhat of a conspiracy theorist, realist, lol, and think they might be purposely infecting livestock, paying/coercing farmers to comply with their agenda or something like that. That is a very interesting question to ponder, and what I was kind of starting to imagine when I asked all these people these questions and got these answers. Operation Homestead commented on my community post about this video coming up and said, I've got 10 chickens. Does that count? And I said, I would think so. Have you had any issues with avian flu? And they said, no, I've kept chickens for decades and never had any health issues with them. And then they said predators like coons, coyotes, possum, etc. are a much bigger threat to the flock. Might be different for commercially grown birds. I'm sure they are more prone to disease being cooped up like they are, pun intended. So I just find it very interesting that the New York Times said that hundreds of commercial and backyard flocks have been affected by avian flu, but none of the people I had talked to from several different states have been. Of course, this was just a very small sampling that I presented here, so maybe I just needed to talk to a couple more chicken farmers and I would have found some of the ones who were affected by avian flu. But as always, I'm very curious to know what your thoughts are on all of this, so I look forward to seeing you in the comments.